The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. We've got a loaded show for you today, so let's jump into everything without any hesitation. First off, let's get to our first bit of news with our preseason scores. Starting out, we'll break down the scores of the games that were played this week. And we'll break down the biggest news that came in not only today, but even as the evening started to roll in on us, getting the latest bit there. Then in our next segment, we're going to break down the Titans and the Bucs, what I liked, what I didn't like, and who really shined in that game. And then in our next segment, we'll be discussing the amazingly talented Mekhi Sargent coming out of nowhere, basically becoming the first player to really catch a lot of people's eyes in the running back situation. We'll break down why he will make the 53-man roster. Then, in our fourth segment, we'll be doing a remembrance piece on the great late Floyd Reese, unfortunately passing away this weekend and breaking the hearts of Titans and Titan family all over the place. So we will miss him, and we will give a remembrance piece later in the hour. And then, in our final segment, I will break down the Titans and the Bears this upcoming Saturday. So, what do I think needs to happen for some of these players? What are the best matchups, and what are we going to do going forward? Well, it's going to be a great show. Let's dive into it. Getting to our preseason scores first, let's break down some of the action that happened this week. New England and Philly played, with New England beating Philly soundly 35-0. You had Washington defeat Cincinnati 17-10. You had Denver destroy Seattle 30-3. Kansas City soundly defeated Arizona 17-10. Buffalo embarrassed the Chicago Bears 41-15. The Las Vegas Raiders defeated the LA Rams by a close margin 17-16. The Green Bay Packers unfortunately couldn't come through with a win as the New York Jets get a win in the preseason, 23-14. Baltimore defeated Carolina 20-3. The New York Giants defeated the Cleveland Browns actually defeated the New York Giants 17-13. My apologies. The Miami Dolphins looked very solid in their outing with the Atlanta Falcons, handing them a loss 37-17. Pittsburgh defeats Detroit 26-20. San Francisco defeated the LA Chargers 15-10. Houston coming up with a win, Dallas 20-14, and Indianapolis beating Minnesota 12-10. Some pretty good matchups there. And the one that stuck out the most to me was definitely probably the Buffalo Bills and the Chicago Bears. It was just really crazy at the way everything was going down in this game, and it really felt just at the time, especially when the fans were really giving Andy Dalton a really hard time. You really felt for the guy, and especially with Justin Fields coming out a couple of days ago saying, he's not a fan of, fans booing the quarterback out there just so he can get out there and get reps. He just felt it was disrespectful, and he just felt it's just not something anybody should be doing. And I can agree with that. I don't like anybody hoping for somebody to lose their job or even to get hurt, which in some message boards you have read around. There's definitely a lot of just haters out there, and it's unfortunate. But it's good of Justin Fields to step up for the guy that's trying to hold on to the job in Chicago, and it's more than likely he probably will start. But Justin Fields showing that he's being the bigger man. If he has to wait, he's going to wait. If the Bears decide that Dalton's the answer, then Dalton's the guy they're going to go with. There's nothing he can do about it. Fields is going to get his time when his time comes. So basically, it's a situation where he has to just be patient. But I very much appreciate him just taking the time and the effort to really stand up for his teammate. Also looking around in some of the other scores, the Jets defeated Green Bay Packers. Of course, it's a game of backups, and really it's a situation where whose backups are really going to shine the most. And the Jets came out very surprising. Corey Davis had a few good outings. Generally, people are still watching and trying to make the determination of Zach Wilson as a quarterback, and I still think he's got a little way to go. I don't think he's going to light up scoreboards anytime soon, but you definitely have just a sense that he's really just getting himself together. He wants to prepare for the long run. He wants to just hold himself down and not try and move things too quickly. Eventually, he's going to get the playbook a little more, but I like what he's been doing. It's been next to a situation where you're in a full rebuild mode. He's done a fairly good job with the pieces around him. So I think the Jets are trending in the right direction. So, good for them. I hope they can continue that success. Zach Wilson definitely feels like he's going to be a very good quarterback. I just hope they continue to build around him, especially on the offensive line, and maybe possibly add a strong tight end in the mix. So we'll see how that goes for the Jets. I was a pretty big fan of how the Cleveland and New York Giants game came to be. And Cleveland did very well, handled themselves very well in that situation. Once again, they're letting backups try and get more reps than the starters, and once again, understandable. But, in Cleveland's situation, they're not going to risk any of their starters getting hurt, but they will try and get some of the guys more reps as the season goes on, and I think that's a good thing. Just eventually you have to just take your time and just see how these things unfold. But Cleveland's trending in the right direction. I think with the Giants, it's still a defensive issue. I still think eventually when they get their starters out there a little more full time, it's going to be a situation where they're going to try and be a little more physical on the offensive side. I hope they can continue trending in that direction, but at the same time, it's a situation you really hope that it's either going to hit or miss for them, and this is going to be a very big year for Daniel Jones. So I really hope that they can get this put together. I know there's still a few holes with the Giants organization, but we'll see how that goes along as the season progresses. And right now we'll break into our news, which will break into the 5 stories that seem to be trending throughout the week. And it would appear Cam Newton's going to be out for at least 5 days due to COVID miscommunications. And apparently what happened was that there was a test involved where he went to go get took outside of the team facility, and there was a mix-up with him trying to understand the rules of it, and him eventually finding out that he did break the rules that were in place through the NFL and the Players Association's agreement. So at this moment right now, he's under surveillance for at least 5 days right now until they can determine that the situation that he's in right now isn't going to bode anything negative and hold him back. So unfortunately, with the miscommunication, I just hope that the players really just try and get on track and keep themselves on tabs, especially in these situations that we're still in. This thing's still going around, and it's unfortunate, but you just have to do what you can do, and I really do hope that they're able to just try and keep everybody safe, the players, the coaches, and even the fans. COVID just sucks, really. It just sucks. So I'm just hoping everybody along the lines can just get out there and just be safe and just try and enjoy life and just get back to the regular flow of things. But really, I just hope the players continue to just try and follow those guidelines, and hopefully it's a situation that they continue to move forward and progress on as individuals and as a whole, trying to just get through the situation. So next on the agenda, Vikings have re-signed Everson Griffin, who had been a long-time Viking for quite a few years before he was left for the Cowboys. And unfortunately, an injury derailed his season there. And from there, he was released and ended up with the Detroit Lions and did fairly well with Detroit. I think he got about 6 sacks last year and was really just kind of just waiting out to see what the situation was and what the market would be, especially with free agency kind of winding and bogging down. But a guy with his age, and especially with that kind of injury that he's had, it was very puzzling just to see if anyone was going to try and take a chance on him. So I definitely feel that Minnesota's got to be the right place for him. I feel that he's going to be right at home again. There's no hard feelings with him and Kirk Cousins. They're basically going to just mend the fence right there, and I think it's a good fit. Sometimes going home's the best option for you, and I think that's the best option for Everson Griffin. So I think it's a win for him. I think it's a win for our Vikings. They shore up their defensive line. He's still got some years on him. So it's a win-win situation. So that's all there is to it. So good for him, good for them. Carson Wentz is back in the practice field today, seen on camera throwing around, moving around a little more from after what was apparently a serious foot injury. Now appears he's on the field and trying to handle himself and get back and try and be ready for the regular season. I really hope he takes this thing slow. I understand he has to try and do whatever he can to get out there and make plays and be the guy. But don't do it at the expense of trying to rush what is a serious injury. Make no mistake, a foot injury is nothing small. There's a lot of complications that can go wrong. He could re-injure it if it's not properly wrapped, or if he moves the wrong way, or if he gets hit the wrong way. I don't want to see that, but I understand where he's coming from as a player. He needs to get out on the field. It's a year where he's trying to make himself be the guy to just try and elevate the Colts to the next level. But I really hope that he does try and move a little slow with this and doesn't try to rush anything. The biggest piece of this puzzle is him. And if he gets hurt, then that derails everything. It already shows that the Colts have trust that he's going to make the right decision. But my biggest qualm with this whole thing is if he is rushing himself and he knows he's not ready, then this could not end well. But I hope it does. And hopefully he's making the right decisions on this. In other news, Raiders inquired about Khalil Mack. That's right. The Raiders were asking about Khalil Mack in possible trade negotiations, but the Chicago Bears shut that down. And I don't blame Khalil Mack for not being interested, or the Chicago Bears, for that matter, being interested. This trade didn't happen maybe about a few years ago. So, yes, I mean, the Bears have already spent the trade capital that they've gotten. And the Raiders, unfortunately, when they got their trade capital in the process, it hadn't worked out that well. So it's obvious that they were willing to just get Khalil Mack back in the Raider black and silver, but Chicago Bears have no interest in that, and I don't blame them. Khalil Mack is definitely a star, and he's the biggest star for the Chicago Bears right now. So I don't see any kind of just trade or trade interest for that matter, and it would have to be a very, very impressive trade package. And obviously, it wasn't when Seattle was in trade talks. There wasn't much interest in that either, from at least the Bears standpoint, or at least Seattle's standpoint. But I can just tell you this: the Raiders weren't going to get Khalil Mack. That's all there is to it, and that's all there was going to happen for there. So it's a fun story, but I wouldn't put too much stock into it, really. And then our final story, and this comes out through a few sources, and it's concerning Dak Prescott's shoulder. And a lot of people are saying that this type of injury that he still has, that it's being prolonged, and he's in a situation where he could possibly re-hurt himself if he rushes things. And the Cowboys are Dak reliant right now. They need him on the field. He's the guy that's going to get the Cowboys to go where they need to go. But the problem is, there's already been numerous sources that have come out and said his shoulder is on the verge of possibly being re-hurt. Especially in the game where he was playing against the Texans, there just looked like there was he was doing a lot of short passing. And it really just came to a boil where everyone was like, it's just, he's not throwing the ball long. He's very hesitant about making any kind of vertical passing. The arm strength just doesn't seem to be here. He's just doing short little drop-off passes, from what a lot of sources are saying. And this is coming from a lot of them. Adam Schefter, Colin Cowherd, Troy Aikman, a lot of very reputable people that are keeping their eyes on the situation. And Dak Prescott, without him, the Cowboys' offense isn't going to work. And especially in a year where they were going to be on Hard Knocks, this is now an issue, and it's going to circulate, especially in the last couple of episodes. So that could possibly be a distraction. The whole situation of Dak not being healthy is a distraction for the Dallas Cowboys. So it's going to come to a boil. And we're either going to find out that it's either worse than we think it is, or it's just kind of blown up and just building up hype. But I really feel like that in the situation, that the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to do whatever they can to not tip their hand and let people understand what's going on with the situation. Because if push comes to shove, this is not a good situation for them at all. They already went through the quarterback situation last year, and everything just fell apart at the seams. Zeke can't carry the team. He's not the player he was the last few years ago. And I genuinely worry about the Cowboys offense without Dak Prescott. And if his shoulder injury is more of a concern than people are letting on, then the Cowboys are in for a really, really long year. So we'll just see how that goes, and hopefully, just hope for the best for him. That's all we can do. All right, guys. Great getting through all the news and everything. We're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, I'm going to break down the Titans and the Bucs game. What I liked, what I didn't like, and who shined the brightest. This is the Power Hour. I'm Michael Bishop. We'll be back in 30.
I got a million ways to get it. Choose one. Hey, bring it back. Now double your money and make it stack. I'm on to the next one. On to the next. On.
The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me on this Monday evening. And don't forget, if you like the show, help it grow. Like and subscribe on our channel today. Go to Facebook and like us. Follow us on Twitter, and check us out on Twitch. We're all over the media, so don't be afraid. The Power Hour is for everyone. Getting into our second segment, we're going to break down the Bucs and the Titans game as of what happened Saturday night. And I've got to admit, it was a very dominant performance, especially for the players coming in and taking care of business and knowing that there's going to be roster spots up for grabs. They knew this was going to be the most important game following to the next one, which is going to be the final preseason game. But really for a lot of players, before they make the cut down to Tuesday, right where I think they get it to 80 players at 3 p.m. Central Time, they knew the important measure here was to get these guys as much reps as possible. And I'm just going to be honest, I really felt like this was a situation where some of these guys just shined tremendously. And there were 3 players that really just came out and just balled out without any regards for anybody else's feelings or any chance to get playing time. And my first one was Mason Kinsley. And he came out and he played tremendously. He stayed focused even when he didn't get off to a fast start. The kid was out there and he stayed focused. He was able to get around, get blocks, and eventually when they needed him to make plays, he did. Especially right in the second half where he got that touchdown pass, I believe it was from Barkley, and he looked great. His route running was good, his blocking was good. Everything that he was out there doing, he was doing because he knew what was up for grabs, and he was doing it with authority. And a shout out to Titan Rossi for joining the show. How you doing, buddy? Great to see you. Looking forward to your show later tonight. Catch that out if you got a chance on Titan Rossi's channel, giving him a shout out. But Kinsley is definitely going out there and he's balling. And that's what he has to do right now. The situation that is in his hands, he has taken advantage of. And this kid, he knows what's on the line. Right now, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Josh Reynolds right now are the 3 guys. There's at least 3 to 4 slots that's going to be open. And right now, you can say Chester Rogers is going to get one of them. You're going to say it's either going to be up between Johnson or it's going to be up between Fitzpatrick or McMath. If they want to keep some of those guys on for special teams purposes, McMath especially. Maybe they keep Fitzpatrick, but I still feel that he's probably going to go on the practice squad. I think he's still too raw, and he's going to need some time to adjust. McKinley's done everything that this team has asked him to do, and he's come through with flying colors. And he's a fan favorite. Throughout just the entire internet, Titans fans all around are just rooting for this kid because he's a great athlete, he's a great person, and even more so, he loves the game. And through just tremendous odds, he has come through and he has shined. And I love players like that. I love guys that come from smaller schools or from situations that were out of their hands, and they come in through all the adversity that they've thrown, and they shine. And this kid's done that. He came from a college called Berry College. That's about as low as you can start. And the fact that he continues to just build his game and show up in the moments where he needs to show up and to show the Tennessee Titans that taking a chance on him was worth it. Like all players, they want a chance to shine on the big stage. And on the stage he's on right now, I think he can elevate further from that. I see a player with very much Wes Welker playing abilities. He probably could be even better than that. He's quick, he's agile, he's very good at getting downfield, and he's very good at making contested catches. That's what you need in this league. That's what the Tennessee Titans need. They don't always need A.J. Brown or Julio Jones to be the game changer. Sometimes your smallest guy can be the biggest difference maker. And you look at Kinsley and you see everything and every tangible there that can make him better. And that's what this team needs. They need the guy to be in there and to consistently give his all. And he's giving his all. So for me, it's an easy pick right there. Kinsley shined very bright, and I was very happy with how he handled himself. Moving on to player number 2, and I'm going to move to the defensive side of the ball. And it's really easy. Elijah Molden. The kid continues to just drop jaws and just make people scratch their heads like, this kid fell where? It's amazing. He's already getting praise from just all kinds of analysts after one tremendous game, and especially from his peers. I believe Ramsey actually tweeted out some love to him, saying he's going to make teams regret passing on him, and I agree. And Titan Rossi brings up a good point. He says, does Molden remind you of Finnegan? And I'll go on a limb here. I'll go even further. I'll say Molden reminds me a lot of Samari Roll, just from his speed and his athletic ability. And Rossi said it was Honey Badger that said that. My apologies. It's good to have somebody that's actually locking me down on this. So I appreciate that, Titan. Or I'm sorry, Titan Upload. I'm sorry. My bad, buddy. So it was Honey Badger that said that. So he is getting a lot of shout out from his peers, and I definitely feel like this kid's going to continue to grow, and this game's going to evolve, especially under the secondary coach. And I think from a defensive scheme, he's going to fit in absolutely well. But what I'm really interested to see from him, especially, is to get into the deep ball coverage fights with these receivers. I want to see what he can do with some of the best receivers in the game. And that's really going to separate him from the pack. And I don't doubt that he can't do it. I think it's just going to take time and a little bit of growing pains. There's probably going to be some situations where he's really going to have to try and get himself just up to speed with a little more playing time. And in some situations, I feel he's going to really feel uncomfortable, especially around some other receivers who are a little more seasoned and on a Pro Bowl level. So he's going to have those matchups, and I think that's going to be good for him. It's a continual effort on his part to continue to grow in the game, to catch up in the playbook, and to catch up even further with the speed of the game. And that's really what hurts a lot of these players going forward. It's trying to get their speed down and to match it with their opponents. And from what I've seen so far, just in the first game that he's played, I see a young man that's excited to get out there and to make plays. And it may be one game, but I'll give him the credit where credit's due. If he can continue to develop this and he continues to show that enthusiasm on the practice field, then it's going to translate over to game day. That's what the great players do. They continually find ways to win on game day. And that starts in practice. And him showing out in practice will help his case. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him on special teams. Sometimes you got to put your best players on special teams and put them in situations where they can continue to help improve the team on all sides of the ball if they can. And for his case, I feel you've got a guy that can contribute not only on the defense, but you can put him on kickoff returns. You could put him on punt returns. And I think you've got a very talented player that can generally just come around and be the guy they need him to be, especially when a guy of this value, it's amazing that he was still available in the draft. So I'm really excited to continue seeing this kid grow, and I really feel that the fans are going to fall in love with his work ethic. They're going to fall in love with his personality. And it's a situation I feel that he just fell in at the right place at the right time. And Titan Upload has said, apparently that's what they're doing with McMath, only playing him on special teams. Which, that's good. You know, I think the biggest thing, especially for some of these younger cats, you've got to get them on special teams. The best players in the NFL sometimes usually started out on special teams. And they eventually worked their way up either to the defense or on the offense. That's just usually how it goes. Like if you want to get down with the head coach, you got to get through the special teams coach in some cases. So I generally will feel a little better if they could probably try and get him on some special teams situations a little earlier, maybe throughout the Bears game, and I'll talk a little bit about that more later in the show. But from what I saw on the defense, I really love what I've seen so far. And if he continues that in practice and he continues that work ethic, the sky's the limit for this kid. And I have no doubts that he's going to succeed at a high level, as long as he puts in the work and he stays healthy, of course. And finally, I'm going to go with another defensive player. And I know everybody's probably going to yell at me, well, what about Sargent? I've got a segment about Sargent. We'll get to that. We'll get to that next segment. I promise. But I really loved, especially the fact, and some people will be a little surprised about this, but I really love the way Matt Barkley came out and played. And it's easy to say, well, there was a quarterback battle, and you just basically saw two guys kind of go at it. But my take on this is we need a guy that's going to be able to take the quarterback position and help move it along if the worst case scenario comes to be. Now, do I feel comfortable with Matt Barkley as a starting quarterback if the worst case scenario happens? And I'm not going to say it on the show, knock on wood, we're not going to go there. But if it happens, I really feel Barkley might shine in this offense because he's not going to have to do a whole lot. He's got talent. I'm not saying he's not talented, but it's nice to have core pieces around you that make your job easier. And right now in the NFL, who has the easier job as a backup quarterback? Probably other than the Kansas City Chiefs, or maybe even, we'll say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Granted, their quarterback situation probably isn't really good, but at least they've got really good pieces around them. And Titan Upload says, both Barkley and Woodside trust Kinsley the most. Excuse me. That's why they go to them all the time. 8 times, in fact, last game. next leading receiver had 2 targets. Gotta mean something. And I agree with that Titan upload. Your quarterbacks, they're creatures of habit. And they're going to go after guys, and they're going to target guys they feel comfortable with and build that repertoire and relationship. And in that case, Woodside and Barkley definitely have just that trust in Kinsey to get him out in the open field and to make plays. But also, I take into consideration that Barkley's got to be the guy I feel in a situation, if he has to take the reins, he's got some good pieces around him. And I'm willing to give him the trust, especially if he's willing to make good decisions. And Titan Upload says, do you think Barkley got better with Bills under Allen? Give me hope. And honestly, I think, yes, I think he did. And I really accredit Buffalo's offensive coordinator who came from Alabama. And really, I feel in situations like that, if you have a guy that's really good at developing quarterbacks and good at developing offensive protocol and plays, and that's what their coordinator was good at. That's why Buffalo's elevated themselves at a high level. Don't be surprised if their offensive coordinator is really in line for a lot of jobs next season. He's very high maintenance. He's got a lot of eyes on him. And one of the reasons why Allen was very successful in Buffalo and why Buffalo's offense is very fluid and very high scoring. So I do take that into consideration. I do feel that he's going to continue to help develop him and help build him along. But Barkley got out at the right time. And being in Tennessee is a good situation for him. You know, you've got Derrick Henry behind you. You've got Julio Jones on one side. You've got H.E. Brown on the other. You've got Anthony Firkser on the tight end side. And you've got a really good offensive line. And if one guy gets hurt, Tennessee's been very confident enough to continue to patch that up. And hopefully that won't be the case. But any quarterback in this situation, Barkley is in the best situation he could be in right now. And him playing well, especially in the Bucs game, and looking comfortable in the pocket, and making quick decisions and getting the ball down the field, especially to the second or the third string stars, you know, that just shows me he's got the ability to make good decisions and he's got the ability to lead. And like I said, worst case scenario, I'm a little more comfortable with him doing this if he's asked to come into the situation and do it. So I was really impressed with how he handled himself. Even after a bad play, he just seemed to bounce back. So I really think that for Tennessee, Barkley should be quarterback 2. And they may go completely different if a quarterback becomes open after somebody gets cut, or they may go after someone else completely. I don't know. But right now, Barkley's showing that he can handle himself. I think Woodside has done well, but it's kind of been a back and forth. Woodside was good against the Falcons, and Barkley was good against the Bucs. The Chicago game is going to be the deciding factor. So whoever's going to be making the most plays and handling business, that's the guy they're going to go with. But if I've got to take a guess, it's going to be Barkley. And I'm fine with that. You want the guy with experience. You want the guy that's going to be comfortable in the system. And it seems like he's taken to the system very quickly. And I like the fact that he is, and I like the fact that he continues to move himself and be the kind of playmaker that they need if they need him. Well, all right, guys, we're going to take a quick 30-second break. And when we come back, I am devoting the next segment completely to my favorite player, Mekhi Sargent. Call me a part of Sargent's platoon. We'll be back in 30. This is the Power Hour. I'm your host, Michael Bishop. Back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop. Thank you for joining me on this Monday evening as we break down all the Tennessee Titans and NFL news of the week. I've got to admit, it's always great to get on these shows. I love it when you all are here. I love when we got a full house, and even the show chat's blowing up, and I love that. Special shout out to Titan Upload and Titans Rossi for being on the show today. Love you guys being here. Love your guys' show, by the way. Shout out to y'all. Definitely check out their show. Check out Titan Rossi, apparently having a show tonight. Titans Upload always has something going on throughout the week. And I'll give a special shout out to my buddy Mr. Titan, who put up a video earlier today. Check out his channel if you get a chance. Just giving a shout out to all my boys. We good. And breaking down into our next segment. Sometimes players come along and they really just get you excited, especially what they bring to the table. And in the Tennessee Titans situation, we all know who the running back is going to be for this year. It's going to be Derrick Henry. There's no doubt in anybody's mind. If you're not even a casual football fan, I'm sure you've heard his name. He's pretty well known, even to some people that aren't too sure about him. I know he's a guy that his name's been said around, especially in the last couple of years where he was basically putting jaw-dropping moves on guys. And even this last year where he threw down literally 2,000 yards with an offensive line that didn't have any Pro Bowlers. But it always comes down to the question, who takes control when Henry's on the sideline catching his breath or getting a drink of water? And Darren Evans was drafted to be the guy that can come in at a scat back position and give them the burst of speed they need, and also be a guy that could catch the ball out of the backfield and scamper for a short gain and turn it into a 30 or 40-yard pickup. But unfortunately, injuries have derailed him from that. And it's unfortunate because I really liked what he brought to the table. I really liked him in college, coming from Appalachian State. And he really showed times where he had a lot of potential. But injuries is a big part of sports. And unfortunately, in those situations, you really want guys that are able to stay on the field and stay healthy. That's just part of it. Can he stay healthy for the long run? I don't know. But you have to have somebody behind him. And the guy behind him has come out of nowhere. He is a guy, just like Mason Kinsley, has come in a situation where he had to scrap his way up to the top of the hill. And even when he got up there, and there was nothing for him, he literally had to work himself into a situation to be successful and to get people to understand his passion and his love for this game was real. And guys like that are guys that people get excited for. Those are the kind of players people want to see succeed, because their stories are captivating and they make people genuinely get excited for sports. They're one of the best things about sports. And Mekhi Sargent, right now, is one of the most exciting running backs to root for in the National Football League. Mekhi Sargent has really come out of nowhere. Coming from Key West High School, as a young man trying to make his way to the NFL, no recruiters wanted to go to that school and watch him. He sent film out. No one had any interest. This is a young man that basically had to start his college football career at a small community college in Iowa, and then garnered enough attention to get an opportunity to go to Iowa, where he would finish out his career. And at Iowa, he would amass 76 carries for 432 yards, 7 touchdowns in 8 games in a COVID year. And unfortunately, those aren't eye-popping numbers. But in an 8-game scenario, that's fairly impressive, especially being a small workhorse. And Iowa's generally known for having a strong offensive line. And they can run the ball, and sometimes they've had good quarterbacks, but generally they build an offense as a run-style offense. So for Iowa to have him and to find him and put him in a situation to be successful, he got as much film on himself as he could and eventually try and take it to the next level to the NFL. And like a lot of players that don't get drafted, he ended up getting a contract from the Tennessee Titans as an unsigned free agent. And it worked out in his favor. And unfortunately, he had to work for playing time. And it worked. He built himself up. He put himself in the playbook. He got himself involved in the offense early and often. When put on special teams, he put himself in a situation early and often to make plays and to put himself into successful situations. And the coaches noticed that. And it got passed down. And that's generally how he got himself really some serious street cred in the football locker room and in the coach's office. It was basically from this guy coming in and handling business and just showing he wanted to play and that he has the ability to play at the next level. So getting his chance in Atlanta, I believe he had about 16 carries. He had about 16 carries in that game, and I believe it was for about, he was roughly about, I think it was 58 yards, but they were really splitting the ball up between the running backs. But he was the one that really stood out the most. And it just really showed from his perspective of just being able to look down the field, to judge when the hole would open up for the offensive line standpoint, and he could make cuts and move the chains and move forward. And even what you saw against the Bucs, where he rushed for over, I think, 76, 78 yards on, once again, I think 16 carries. I think it was about 16 carries. You saw a player come in, watch for the line to make holes, made cuts, made athletic moves, and even on a fourth down, separated himself enough, even with their quarterback under pressure, to make a catch in the end zone. And he has shown himself to be a very proven commodity on kickoff returns and I believe on punt returns. They're putting him everywhere, and they're putting him to work. And the Tennessee Titans like players that generally come in and can play multiple positions. They like people that are very workhorse oriented. They like guys that to get to their noses to the grindstone and to just start making plays. They like those rough, gritty players. And that's why Mekhi Sargent, in my opinion, is the kind of player that fits this team. Tennessee is looking for guys that will continually be aggressive. They're looking for guys that not only make plays, but they're looking for players that are going to do whatever it takes to win. And Mekhi Sargent has that grit and that attitude. And that's what this team needs. I see him just being the kind of guy that can step in, even if Darren Evans is hurt and has to miss some time. And I hope that's not the case. I feel Sargent is very capable of standing in and handling that job. I like his build. I like his athleticism. I like the way he stares down the field. I like how he continues to move his feet. That's imperative for a running back. You have to continue to move yourself forward in this league, and you have to find ways to be consistent. And he does that. He hasn't done anything that's really garnered a lot of negative attention. Even right now, he's the number 2 leading rusher in the NFL for preseason, with I think about 136 yards. So even then, I really like what I'm seeing from him. And I think guys like him, they put their hearts on the line, they put their body, and they put blood, sweat, and tears into their work. And that's what he's done. And that's what he's continuing to do. And I want to see more of that. I want to see him succeed. Just like people are rooting for Mason Kinsley. I want to see Mekhi Sargent make this team. Because I know he's going to be the difference maker Tennessee needs and wants. You have to have guys with heart and a work principle and a determination to do whatever it takes to win. And he has that. Guys that start from the bottom and get here, that's who you want on your team. And there's nothing more attractive from that standpoint as a fan where you see guys that struggle through this and didn't get everything handed to them. And they had to take like an unsigned free agency contract just to try and get on a team. And it wasn't even going to be guaranteed that they were going to make the team. Everything that he has done uncontested. He has done without question. And he continues to shine when the spotlight has been put on him. And for all that, he deserves to be on this 53-man roster. And I know Mike Vrabel will do the right thing. I know the kind of people he looks for on the offense and on the defense, and even on special teams. That's a Vrabel guy. Mekhi Sargent is a Vrabel guy. And I can say without any doubt in my mind, he will be on that roster. So, I am proudly declaring myself a part of the Sargent's platoon. And I'm looking forward to see his chance to shine when he is given that chance. And just know, Mekhi Sargent, you definitely have a fan on the Power Hour. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when I come back, we'll get a little serious for this point. We're going to take a look back at the great legendary Floyd Reese, who passed away this Saturday. Definitely breaking a lot of Titans fans' hearts, but we'll look back at the legacy that he left and even helped build in the great city of Nashville. I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour. We'll be back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening on the show. We've had some great topics today. I'm very glad that everybody's come out and supported the show. It's always great to continue to watch you come in and show your support as we continue to grow. And I'd like to help remind you, if you like the show, help it grow. Please like and subscribe on YouTube today. And check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and check us out on Twitch. We're everywhere for your needs as the fan on the go. Well, guys, getting a little serious now. On Saturday, the Tennessee Titan family mourns as we lost a very special person to all of our hearts. And that would be the passing of our former GM, and really just great Nashvilleian, Floyd Reese. Floyd Reese meant a lot to the city of Nashville and really had a remarkable football legacy that he left behind. And even more so, was just an amazing person, just from the people that have known him and been around him. Just that he was just a very passionate person, had a lot of love to give, was very just fun to be around and energetic, and just brought so much, especially to an organization that was still growing and was a big part of growing that brand here. And it's just hard to see people that you watch and have enjoyed so much and just appreciate so much that they've done, especially for this city. And the fact that football became just a passion here is a big part of him. So I wanted to take a look back at everything that Floyd Reese had accomplished and just to share just all the work that he'd put in and just built his way through the NFL. And it was a remarkable legacy. Born through Springfield, Missouri in 1948. He was a young man that was playing college football at UCLA. And unfortunately went undrafted. And eventually it was to the Canadian leagues, where he would play 2 years up there. But it never really transpired into anything professional. And through that, other doors and other opportunities came to Floyd Reese. And right then and there, he started his career as a coach. And through his coaching career, it started at Liberty Union High School, and it was 1 year for 1970. And after that, he'd returned to UCLA and became basically a strength and conditioning coach, and actually was an assistant coach, and left there to go join Georgia Tech in 1974 to become an assistant coach there for the 1 year. And it just seemed like he would continue to move and find places to just be a little more strong and a little more challenging. So after that, that would be the last college job that he would hold. Reese would then go to the Detroit Lions, and he would stay there for 1975 to 1977 and was their strength and conditioning coach. And he must have done something well because it got the attention of San Francisco, which they hired him there, which unfortunately was only for 1 year. So after that, Floyd began what would be almost nearly a decade of coaching with the Minnesota Vikings. Starting in 1979 to 1983, he would coach the linebackers, he would coach their special teams, and in 1984 he was promoted to the defensive coordinator, which unfortunately didn't work out too well because in 1985 he was demoted back to the linebacking coach. It's one of those things. But the guy continued to find success. After the Minnesota stint, in 1986, he took his talents to the Houston Oilers. And he would stay there and be their linebacking coach until 1989. And then in the greatest turn of events, Floyd would find himself in a situation that he was very unfamiliar with and would seem to be much more challenging. From 1990 to 1993, he was an executive GM. And through there, he learned the process of how to work the draft and how to become a guy that would potentially be an architect. And he would continue to do that until it was in 1994 to 1998, he was given the title of GM and Executive Vice President. And right then and there, even through all the turmoil, this was a Houston team that was going through a stadium battle and a fan battle, and he had to man the ship. And in that time period, he had hired a young and upcoming coach with the system in Jeff Fisher, who had progressed after taking the reins and was finally given a chance to shine. And through all that process, even through the move, where they became the Tennessee Oilers, he would continue to draft well. Throughout his process as a GM, he would add players such as Steve McNair, Eddie George, Javon Curse, Frank Wycheck, Derek Mason, and Kevin Dyson. He would find talent wherever he could find talent. And that potentially built all the way over to when Tennessee transitioned into the Tennessee Titans. And through that, they went to their lone Super Bowl and unfortunately came up short. But they had built something that was lasting. And they built something with pride. And they built something that they knew they wanted to do for the long run. And Floyd Reese stayed with the Tennessee Titans, even adding another hat to his illustrious career, where he was also named the Director of Football Operations, and he would be with the Tennessee Titans until 2006. From there, he would be out of football for a while due to just various reasons. But he would eventually come back for a short stint. And it was to work for the New England Patriots from 2009 to 2012. And he would work as a senior football advisor. And at the time, at the end of the 2012 season, was even up for the Seahawks job, which John Schneider actually eventually got. So from there, eventually Reese would retire and actually went into broadcasting. And if anyone in the Nashville area remembers, and I'm sure they do, from 1025 The Game, the famous Jared and the GM show was formed in Nashville, and it ran for 5 years, and it was a pretty good show. Floyd was an enjoyable personality. He gave great insight. He knew many people in the league and still made a lot of people just enjoy his company and just really just embrace the game of football. And it's unfortunate that we lose him at such a time, especially now when he was going to be honored in the Ring of Honor this upcoming season, along with Bum Phillips and Jeff Fisher. And unfortunately, it looks as if Jeff Fisher will be standing by himself, along with those family members. And it means so much for someone that really just gave their life to an organization, for so much unsureness, especially going through the transition from Houston to Tennessee. And really, it was a transition from Houston to Memphis to Nashville. And this man continually worked. He continually tried to find ways to make this team better and to move the needle and get fans involved and excited about having football in Nashville. And that's what I think Floyd Reese's legacy will be. I think it's as somebody showing, even if you can't make yourself out to be a great player, sometimes you're not meant to be a great player. And that's all right. There's many players that never panned out in the league, but got involved in coaching, or got involved in being a GM, or got involved in being a director of football operations. Those things happen. And Floyd Reese's path was basically that. And it was a successful path at that. He built the Titans into a strong contender in the late 90s and throughout the 2000s. He's very much accredited to that success. He's very much tied in with Jeff Fisher from having that success. And it's a shame that we've lost him, and it's a shame that he won't get to see his name put up in the ring. But it just makes me feel grateful that we got to experience this, and we got to see him just give everything he could for this organization and this team and this city. So I would like to personally just say, especially to his family, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Floyd Reese. Thank you for everything that he did. Not only just as a person, but just showing the spirit that just hard work and determination can really motivate a lot of people. And that's what Floyd Reese did. All right, guys, we'll take our final break. And when I come back, we'll do a quick breakdown of the Titans and the Bears, who I think is going to be the ones that have to shine, and what are the matchups that are really going to be the ones of interest. We'll find out in 30 seconds. I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour, back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. We've had a great show so far, and in our final segment, I'm going to break down the Titans versus the Bears this Saturday night. I believe it's 7 p.m. And here's going to be the matchups of interest. Right now at this point, I'm really looking forward to see the Titans defense as a whole against the Bears quarterbacks. And that includes whoever starts, whether it be Andy Dalton or whether it be Justin Fields. I know Andy Dalton's got a rough start, and I know he's just got a lot of criticism, and at the same time, he's really just been trying to find himself. And it's unfortunate, especially when you've got a young guy behind you waiting to go. But I'm really excited at the way our defense has played. I'm excited for the fact that we've only given up 6 points, and that they've continued to be just transcendent, and they've transcending their game to a higher level. These guys are playing at a high level, even for backups, and I'm excited to see them go after some of these starters, depending on how far the Bears are going to let them play. And they might let them play a little bit longer than usual. Some coaches do. So that's something I think we should keep our eyes on. But as a whole, the Tennessee Titans defense against Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, I really want to see what they can do, especially with a lot of time. And I really feel like they're going to have an opportunity to try and showcase themselves and try and get themselves a little more views and to get some coaches to try and fight for them to stay onto this roster. Our next matchup I'm really looking forward to, and this is a one-on-one matchup. And this would be with Rodney Adams, and this would also be with Molden. So Elijah Molden and Rodney Adams, which right now is the Bears' best wide receiver, that's not Robinson. And I feel, especially after he had pulled off that 73-yard touchdown against the Bills, where they absolutely got shellacked by the Bills, was probably the one bright spot that the Bears had. So this kid's fighting for a roster spot, and I feel if he's going to play in an extended game, and he more than likely will, this is going to be the matchup I really want to see one-on-one. Caleb Farley might get on this mix, but with the way Molden played, I would like to see him go and try and play this a little more close to the chest. I think he'll be fine. I'm very much going to enjoy this as a one-on-one, and I think they both match up well. So that'll be a fun matchup moving forward. And then finally, I think the biggest thing right now, especially from the Titans standpoint, is to finally find out who their guys are going to be. And it's a simple one, but that's really the one that matters. This is the final dress rehearsal. And for many of these players, they may never get another chance. There's not a lot of guarantees out of anything. All they know is they're playing for their football lives. And this is going to be the message to them as the week goes through. They're going to be told to enjoy practice. They're going to be told to enjoy each other. They're going to be told a lot of you aren't going to see many of these guys in here. And it's part of the situation. It's part of the job. And at the end of the day, this is what it is. It's a job. They're fighting for a chance to be one of the 53 that represents this team. And that's what it is. And I wish all those players the best of luck, and I really hope everything works out for them. It's easy to criticize and say, well, they weren't good enough, or they're just never meant to be on the stage. Well, that's the thing. They were good enough in somebody's eyes. It's just timing, luck, and just heart. Really goes a long way into it. So it's easy to make that judgment call, especially when you're seeing these guys come out and make this situation and try and get on this squad. Maybe they can make the practice squad. That may be an option. But for some of these players, it's either make the 53-man roster or that's it. some of these guys may never play football again after this game. And that's what happens. The NFL moves along. It doesn't wait for anyone. And it will continue to move along. So for these players, if this is their last opportunity to play in a game, I just hope they enjoy themselves. And if it doesn't work out, I hope you have time to reflect on it. I hope you enjoyed the experience. But remember, football is never going to be a forever thing. You don't get to play 20 plus years. It's not a guaranteed thing. And I really hope that eventually they find a path that's more suitable to them if they can't continue. If they wish to continue, hopefully it's through coaching, and maybe they can build through it. But throughout, I would like to thank every player that had come out this year and pushed and gave in everything they could to try and make this team, and to even just contend for this team to make it better. So I wish every one of you all out there, especially from my perspective, the best of luck, and I hope everything goes well. And we'll see what happens as the final game ends and we figure out who the roster moves forward. Thank you for joining me on the Power Hour tonight. Once again, it's just always great to have everybody here. I'm glad it was a great feedback tonight. Special thanks to Titans Rossi and Titan Upload for joining the show. Big fans of theirs. Make sure you catch Titan Rossi's show tonight. I believe it's at 8 Central. So enjoy that when you get the chance to. But once again, I'm very happy to be here. I'm always going to continue to do these shows as long as you continue to watch them. And it is just my great privilege and pleasure to keep bringing you the best in Tennessee Titans news and in NFL news. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. Have a good night and an even better tomorrow. Take care.